My name is Allison. I'm the Programs Outreach and Youth Services Manager here at Monterey County Free Libraries. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Book Chat. Tonight I'm going to chat with you about the book The Artist Colony by Joanna Fitzpatrick. This was a particularly fun book to read because it is set in Carmel. So it was really fun to see the characters moving between Carmel, Point Lobos, Monterey, the Wharf. There were a lot of sites that if you live in Monterey County, particularly in the Monterey-Carmel area, that you're probably really familiar with. And it was really fun to have such familiarity with the scenery as the characters were moving through it. The book is about a character named Sarah, who is an artist, and she is currently living in Paris and comes to Carmel to attend to her sister's affairs after her sister is found dead in the ocean in Carmel. And it is believed that her sister Ada killed herself. But Sarah, aided by a very kind woman named Rosie, starts to think that her sister was murdered. And her and Rosie start to go about trying to investigate her sister's murder with little help from the authorities or from some of the other members of the community. Sarah is in Carmel for about a month while she is figuring out the mystery of her sister's death, and she meets a lot of other characters along the way as she plays amateur sleuth. I forgot to mention that this book is set in the 1920s. It's set in 1924. And I thought that the author did some very interesting things with bringing up a lot of the racial segregation in Monterey at the time period. She talks a lot about the Chinese fishing village in Pacific Grove, the Japanese abalone divers off of Point Lobos and in Whalers Cove. She also discusses the Portuguese whaling business and dairy farming, and examines some of the racial relationships through the characters. There is a character in the novel named Serena who is Japanese and Portuguese but is passing as white so that she can be taken seriously as an artist. And so there are a lot of racial tensions that get brought up in this book. One of the things that I found a little bit lacking about this story is that Sarah starts a romance with a character named Robert, who is pretty racist and says some racist things about both Germans, because it's shortly after World War I. He was in World War I. He says some stuff about Japanese having to go back to Japan. But even though Sarah is very opposed to these racist ideas, she still starts this romance with Robert. And I found that kind of confusing because she seems very adamant about her views that all people should be given equal opportunities, and she seems very adamant about equality for all. So I'm not sure why she would find this man attractive despite his outward attractiveness. So I found that a little hard to believe that she would so easily succumb to a romance with this character. And I was a little disappointed by that aspect of the book, but it didn't take away from some of the fun of the mystery of the book. There were a couple of times where I got a little confused about character names. I felt like they switched around a lot during some paragraphs, and that was a smidge distracting. But overall, I enjoyed the book, and I thought that it was, as I said at the beginning, very fun to be in a setting that I was familiar with. And also, the author herself has a connection to the story. It is a fictional story. However, the author's great aunt is Ada Bell Champlin, who inspired the character of Ada and was a painter. And the author got the idea for the book when she inherited a painting by her great aunt, and it did more research into her great aunt, which brought her to Carmel, and she decided to write this mystery novel inspired by the landscape and by her aunt's painting. Another thing that was really fun for me is the poet Robinson Jeffers is a character in this book, and I have recently gone to his house in Carmel for a tour. It's called Tour House, and I recently did read one of his poems in one of our Poetry Cafe videos, so it was fun to have him in it as a character. And again, as I've said, just to have a garden party at Tour House, an area that I'm really familiar with, really helped to make the book come alive in my mind. So again, that was The Artist Colony by Joanna Fitzpatrick, and I actually put this book on hold a couple months ago and just recently got it. So some of you out there in our system have already been reading it. If you have any books you'd like to recommend, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Bye-bye.